Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having a great Friday, and I hope that you've had a great week, all things considered. So yes, this is a little bit of a clickbait title. You don't have the right to be hopeless. You don't. And we're going to listen to a portion of a talk by Vernon Howard, who we listened to before a few days. And this talk is entitled, This Talk Saves You Years of Worry. As always, we'll just listen to a portion, and you can find a link to listen to the full lecture in the show notes of this podcast. But the reason I'm sharing this now is because it's recently come to my attention, as I was listening to this yesterday, that this is one of the reasons that people who end up developing the over empathy for people because of the lack of internal and external boundaries, this is how they arrive at this place where they're constantly being depleted. It's because they don't have this protection because of the definitions and rules that they were given when they were born, or by the people who raised them, or by their culture, or a mix of the two. And so the idea is that we need to realize that we have agency, that we have power, that we have a duty to ourselves to remain sovereign. We have a duty to ourselves to remain in our power. We have a duty to protect our energy. We have a duty to be happy. And we don't have the right to be hopeless. Now, if that title catches you a bit off guard, let's go ahead and listen to Vernon Howard so we can hear him explain a bit more exactly what he means.
The world doesn't know its own business. The world is unqualified to run the world's business. The least capable people of educating other people are the educators. The people less able to properly and sensibly govern the people are the officials of the government. They are the least capable. The last person to be able to tell you how to reach a new life, how to rise above this world, the last people are the religious people. Hopeless situation? Yes, for most people. Of course, it's an absolutely hopeless situation, and it has been for thousands and thousands of years. Well, when I say hopeless, do not most people come into this world with a hopeless spirit after opening their eyes and looking around? And do they not proceed through life with a dark, confused, hurt, desperate state of mind? Of course, it's hopeless. Now, a hopeless individual is 100% responsible for his condition. There is never any excuse for you or for anyone else to say, I'm hopeless because that man sat in the chair and he said that the educators and the religious people and the governors, that they are misleading me. Therefore, I have a right to be hopeless. And if you say that in your sickness, if you say that, you will always must add to it, if they would only let me. This is a sure sign of insanity, that you think you can do better than the hopeless people running the world's affairs. Everyone lives like this. Everyone talks like this. People who say there's no point voting at all because they're all scoundrels. There's no point going to church because they're all hypocrites. That is a true statement, but it's no excuse for you. No human being who comes to this world ever has any excuse whatever for remaining as he is. But all of them do. Practically everyone uses the hopelessness of the situation to justify their own misery. How's that for stupidity? There was a scientist who was assigned to work on a secret project. And so he got an address of where it was and drove his car from the middle of the city way out to the suburbs. And he looked at the address given to him and he followed the road down. And he saw a big building there and he stopped and had a big high wall around it. So he said, this is the place. So he stopped his car and he walked up to the gate, which was closed. And his first impression was this was a very tightly secure place. Security was very strict, high wall, closed gate, a little opening in the door. So he went up and pushed a button and the little door in the gate opened. And a voice asked who it was, and he identified himself as a certain scientist who was supposed to come in and begin work on a very important secret project. So the voice said, fine, may we have your identity card, please? So he said, fine. He gave his identity card. The voice said, will you fill out this page of answers to our questions, please? And he said, boy, they are strict. So he sat down in his car and filled out the answers to their 20 or 30 questions, handed it back. And the voice said, we can't let you in today. Please come back tomorrow after we've examined your answers and run a security check on you. Well, he understood that. Being a secret project, they don't want to make any mistakes of letting the enemy in. So he went on home, came back the next day, and the whole process started all over again. Asked for his identification, asked him a lot of questions, stalled back and forth, made him wait out there for a long time. This went on for several days, and he began to get annoyed at it. Finally, about the end of the fourth day, he came back, went through the whole routine again, exactly the same procedure, answering questions, put down yes or no, describe your past employment, and all the whole thing. Very annoying. At the end of the fourth day, in the late afternoon, he heard a strange giggle coming from behind the door. And the door opened, and he went on in, and there was a man in a Batman uniform holding a toy balloon. And he looked around the grounds, and he saw a woman dressed up as a fairy. He saw another man in another odd costume, and he suddenly realized where he was. He was in a lunatic asylum. Someone had given him the wrong address. Once, now look, by the way, someone has given you the wrong address. Now look, once he saw clearly where he was, did he have any more problem? No. He knew he was at the wrong place, and he moved on to the right address. And got on in and went about his work. He had no problem as long as he could see clearly where he was. He had a difficulty. Look, you have a difficulty only as long as you think that the lunatic asylum is the right address, the right place. Look at all the questions society throws at you. Who are you not to belong to our religion? Fill out the blank and tell us why. Who are you to say that you know better how to govern the government than we do? We know better than you do. See another law? Once you understand that you're knocking on the wrong door, once you see that it is wrong, you automatically, without effort, proceed to the right. Now, look what a simple fact that is and how millions of people evade it. Why do we hammer over and over again? See clearly. See without any question that all you are is a mass of wrongness. Go through that stage, and effortlessly the right will come to you. Look at the resentment and the strain and even hatred that scientist had inside of him. Because, look, he was saying, look, I'm a great scientist. You ought to let me in there to go about my work. Instead, you're treating me as if I know nothing at all. This is the way we talk, isn't it? Look, I tell you, if you understand that you live in a lunatic asylum called this earth, called this world, if you see that, there is no problem at all. You are, well, you don't go. You are carried to the right place. How would you like to stop filling out the blanks, the blank pages, the long questionnaires? You know how you resent questions that people ask you about your personal life? Add the no to that. The no shirts will help you on that, incidentally. Do you ever have an experience where people pry into your private life, ask you why you do this or why you don't do that? And you know what your problem is? You don't realize that person is a lunatic. We pry here in a different way, by the way, so don't you ever make a wrong connection. I know that some of you, when I said that, and I know one person particularly, or two people, who made a wrong connection when I said that. So what are you going to do about it? If you were to rebel, rightly rebel, against the imposition, you know what an imposition is? An imposition is something that someone has poured on you, a weight that someone has put onto you. If you would rebel against the imposition and say no to that, you would hear the giggle much sooner. And the gate would open much sooner so you could see where you are. And need I add that the lunatic asylum is inside as well as outside. Look at the answers you give yourself. Picture yourself at home one day, relaxed, and there's a knock on the door. You go to the door, and a man is standing there. Follow this. He says, do you mind if I come in and wreck your furniture? And you think, this must be a practical joke by one of my neighbors, or the people from that lunatic asylum got out, or something. And you stare at him, and he pleads with you. He says, please, can I come in and wreck your furniture? And you shake your head and close the door and go back about your business. A couple hours later, another knock. This time it's a woman, and she has a bucket of paint in her hand, and she says, please, sir, may I slosh this paint all over your walls? And you, in your very best manner, say, no, madam, you may not slosh your paint all over my wall. The neighbor sure has an odd sense of humor to keep sending his friends over here to ask questions like that. 2 or 3 hours later, third knock on the door. Another man comes up. He has a big bucket of trash in his hand. Please, sir, may I scatter my trash all over your house? You say, no, you can't scatter trash. I'm going to close the door and go about your business. That night, the man goes to bed, and he's lying there, and he's thinking about the very peculiar experiences that he's had. And while he's lying there, something happens to him. Now follow. something happens to him that he doesn't know is happening to him. So we're going to leave him there for a minute, and I'm going to tell you, we're going to look down at him there, kind of dazed, almost falling off to sleep, but not quite. And we're going to look into his psychic system. 3 times while he's lying there, 3 different thoughts combined with matching emotions come to him. And he suffers from these 3, which I'll explain in a minute. He suffers from these 3 without knowing that he is doing so. Now, it's very important for you to know that he doesn't know at the moment of his pain and his shame. He doesn't know what is causing it. All he knows is the agony of the thought - feeling. Now, the first one, he's lying there, is his remembrance. Yeah, we'll get close to home now. Is his remembrance that when he was a 10-year-old boy, his parents had left some money on a mantle, kind of left it out there for a little bit, and he stole 50 cents from his parents. And he went out and bought candy with it. And they never found it out. They never missed it. But he knew, here he is now, a 50-year-old man. He's remembering 40 years ago when he stole that 50 cents off the mantle from his parents and never told him. And that memory, as he was lying there, came through his mind and tormented him. Right? That's one. Now remember, he's not able to say, oh, that thought of how I stole that 50 cents came through me. All he knows is it felt that way. You understand? Pain. Lying there still, a second thought comes through his mind. This time when he was for his first car, and he pulled into a parking lot somewhere and banged another person's car, banged up the fender, and he knew he should have left his name and address and phone number, that he'd banged up the other person's car, and it's his careless driving that did it. He was eager to get somewhere, to the dance or whatever. Instead of leaving the note, he ran off real fast. Right? It happened to any of you, and not that, but your own way. Right? So that caused him pain, but he wasn't able to stand outside of himself and say, I saw that thought come back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I banged that man's car and went off and felt guilty about it, but glad that I wasn't involved in it too. That's the second thought. Remember, he's not a conscious man. He's not able to observe his thoughts and feelings. Third thought comes through his mind. This one connected with sex. You know how emotional sex is. You know how it haunts your mind in so many different ways. Well, this sex thought was a shameful, embarrassing one. Something to do with sex that he had experienced in past years. That came through his mind and his feelings and humiliated him. In other words, this man, like everyone else, is just suffering from a stream of attacks by the past, which he takes as being now. All right. He lies there a couple hours longer, and he thinks about the 3 people who came to his door that he said no to, and he thinks about his suffering. All of a sudden, because he has been coming to this class, an explosion of consciousness, his first real spiritual revelation. It comes to him, and he knows, he sees clearly, he understands what's been happening to him. Practical joke or not, those 3 people who came, he now sees the exact parallel between that experience and what happened to him during the night and all day long, 24 hours a day. He can very easily say no to vandals who come to the door and say, can I wreck your house? That's easy, because it's a physical thing. It's an exterior thing. And he sees that because he didn't know how to say no, he didn't understand what it means to spiritually say no, because yes to wrong things always occurs in a state of psychic sleep, he just laid there and permitted them to come through his mind and to torment him. Now, why do you suppose there's such a gap between our ability to say no to someone who says, I want to wreck your house, and all these people who, these individual thoughts, think of them as individuals, individual vandals. Why do you think there's such a gap? I'll tell you why. Simply because you don't know what is going on inside your own psychic system. That's it. It cannot be explained any clearer. All right, we'll try to explain it clearer. You are ignorant of yourself. Because you're in a state of spiritual sleep, you do the very same thing, and you see if it happens to you during the rest of this day. And you remember exactly as you said no to any vandal who comes to your door, you can say no to the very same ones who come to you in the night, and it can be right in the middle of the day, can't it? We're talking about spiritual darkness. Come to you in the very night, and because you don't know they're there, they creep in and cause you pain. Now, do you know the cause of all your pain? See, we see the physical world through the 5 senses, eyes and ears and so on. We see it, and we can comprehend the physical world on its own level because we have the eyes and ears to do that very thing. We can look out and we can see we have to turn left or right in the car or whatever we have to do. We can see that. Why aren't we as competent inwardly? The answer to that, again, is very simple, because our spiritual perception has not matured. Have you had any experiences at all, or in the middle of the night, In the middle of your sleep, all of a sudden, something came to you, and you said, ah, see? And now you understand something we emphasize here, which is hearing the words about self-awakening is not the same as self-awakening. If I say you're asleep and you must wake up, you may think you understand that. You may think you're awake. And the only thing you really understand is the English language. Right? You understand the words, and you nod your head so solemnly and so wisely. It's one or the other. You are either under the domination of not just 3 thought feelings, but thousands of them. And let me tell you one trick they use that you, foolish people, fall for. When the people came to the door and wanted to wreck the furniture and slosh the paint and scatter the trash, the first time the man stood there and said no, they didn't go away. They tried again. He said no, they tried again. He said no, they tried again. He said no, they tried again. Mechanicalness by its very nature is persistent. A rolling truck going down the steep hill is very persistent, isn't it? You're not going to stop it by talking to it. It has to go. That's its nature. The only thing that can stop it is something that is not mechanical. So a mechanical you can't stop the mechanical truck. But the point is, they will stand there and persist. Don't they? Isn't it difficult to put them out? Yeah. Look, you've been coming here for all this time. You read the books. You attend to the talks. Look how hard it is. They plead. And you are sentimental, so sentimental. You're so used to being taken by tears and by sad faces that you won't go through the new guilt of saying no. Because you say, if they plead with you, let me come in and wreck your house. So instead of saying no, you let them come in and wreck your house, wreck your life. You feel that if you say no to them, that you will be an immoral person, right? An unkind person. How can I tell you with words? How can I tell you that you come to that door 50 times a day and they plead, please may I come in and wreck your life, and you open the door and say yes? You know that's a fact. You know how you look at another person, and if they happen to be solemn, you go into self-wrecking reactions to it. I wonder if he hates me this morning. He wasn't even thinking about you. He was thinking about what he always thinks about, which is himself. Now look. A trick is being played on you. Don't feel sorry for anyone. When you feel sorry for anyone, you add to the wreckage of both your world and the world out there. Feeling sorry means that you feel sorry. Therefore, I am kindly. I feel sorry for those hungry children over in that country across the world, the other half of the world. And I give money to them. I feel sorry for them. I'm doing my bit to make this a better world. That person needs this class desperately. Feeling sorry for another person establishes just one more false I in you. Will you give it up? Will you yield the feeling to reality? I'll tell you how you yield to it. You yield to it simply by sticking with the pain of your shame, which is also a rhyme. Stick with the pain, not a true rhyme, pain of your shame. Stick with that until you can't take it anymore, and then take it anymore. You watch your tendency to start to argue with yourself and justify opening the door and welcoming the vandal in. Watch the argument, should I or shouldn't I? I am telling you, you should not. No! I'll tell you what to do. After all 3 of those vandals come to your door, you say no, close the door, then run real quick to the nearest window. And you look out the window and you cup your ears like that, and you will hear him cursing you. All right? Now, why don't you know that before? The word is sucker, I think. I'm going to give you an assignment for the rest of the weekend. When you stand up here, please give us a minute and a half or so of what you should say no to. When you get up, center your talks around that. Now look, I told you last night that if you start with an intellectual no, it will eventually properly influence in the right way the rest of you. An intellectual no is not enough. Because if you only have an intellectual no, if someone else who is dominating has an intellectual yes that is stronger than yours, you won't be able to keep the no going, and you'll get in trouble through yielding to the vandal's yes. You must start where you are. And if you stick with it, as I said, through all their pleading, through all their tears, and look what I did for you, son, daughter, now look what you owe me, stick with all that, I guarantee you that eventually you'll be able to go to the window real quick and see the cursing. Now look how stupid it is. I can't think of a better word. Stupid. Stupid it is to invite someone into your life who wrecks the life, and once he's wrecked it, he'll go out and laugh at you, being a sucker, which you were. You see, you don't have any sense at all. Sense means to see. And to see means that you know absolutely whose side you are on. As you begin to grasp whose side you're on, the side of light, you don't even say no. It is there. It is there in your manner. It is in the way you walk around this room. You understand that? So that you don't have to go into the intellect at all. It's part of it if you talk to someone, because then you're verbalizing and using ideas. Your very life is a no. Your life is a no to one thing. Your life is a no to the whole world, the way it is. Doesn't God say no to this world? Is God a part of this world? True spirituality is not a part of this world. People will leave you alone after that. They won't even try anymore. See, you ask for what you're getting by living in the neighborhood that you live in, the spiritual neighborhood. The reason they knock on your door and try to tempt you is because you still live in the slums. When you live in the kingdom neighborhood, they don't even come to your door anymore. They want nothing to do with that neighborhood. They want the slums where they belong. So are you going to yield? So are you going to watch?
Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. I'm really falling in love with his lectures and his way of seeing the world. I'm also still working through his book, Psychopatography. And I think that's the name of the book. Or maybe I got the title confused. It's something like that. It's in the YouTube Shorts section. You can find it. It really does, coming again from this clickbaity title, you have no right to be hopeless, especially amongst these days, right? When you look around and you see the despair, the hatred, the violence, everything that's going on in the world, and you're thinking to yourself, how can you possibly say that I don't have the right to be hopeless? It's your duty. As it wasn't Neville Goddard, who was the one who wrote I think it was Neville Goddard who wrote the book on meeting with the devil. And the devil was saying, no, I think that was Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill wrote that book on meeting with the devil. And the devil is explaining all of the ways he blocks people, challenges them, pushes them to despair, negative emotions. And it's exactly the same thing that he's saying here. By refusing to protect your house, your inner house, your mind, as you would your normal life house from burglars and thieves and people who want to bring in muddy shoes on your white, pristine carpets, right? We would have no problem stopping an intruder on our physical house. But why do we struggle so much to do that for our internal house, for our soul, for our mind? That is what he means. When he says that we don't have the right to be hopeless, we must fight back against that. We must stand up for ourselves. We must claim our agency over our mind, because that is an attack from the devil to steal your energy. That's why it's so important to acknowledge, to see clearly, and to accept your true self. That is your connection to the higher power. That is your intuition. That is your relationship with God. And it's so important, while in the process of healing, self-expansion, while simultaneously living in a world that is ever more complex, it becomes so important then to know how to set up those internal boundaries, how to set up those defenses, how to protect your inner landscape so that you do not fall into hopelessness and despair, which will destroy your life force energy and thereby your ability to create, which is, again, why we are here. And so I hope you take some time to reflect on this talk today, or this weekend rather. I hope that you will also consider clicking the link in the show notes to listen to the lecture in its entirety. It's about just under an hour and a half. as most of his lectures. I hope this was a little bit of a wake-up call for you. Despite the chaotic times of chaos, despair, rage, hatred, fear, all of these emotions that we're collectively experiencing, remember now, you can require rules for your internal home. You can set boundaries, you can set rules, you can set limits. You are in control of your mind. And that is one of the most important things to remember. You don't have to allow the actions of others to be burdens, to be worries that drain your energy. You deserve more, and you will have more as soon as you believe it, that you can and that you will. That's it for today. As always, don't forget to have some fun this weekend. The most important thing is have fun. Find your way back to joy. Find your way back to pleasure. And I think if you realize how to cut off your excessive worrying, then that'll be much easier. So take care, guys.